but all share the same glory, regardless of how God purposes to take us from this world. If that weren't the case, then we should all get up right now and go out there and try to lay down our life for Christ, because that means we're going to have a greater glory in heaven. That's foolishness. Just identifying with Christ in a world of opposition and isolation, even among our families. See, Abner tried to deter Asahel with that. What am I going to tell your brother if I kill you? He was trying to play on Asahel's emotion with those family ties. But what did Christ say? Except a man deny himself and hate his father and mother, he cannot be my disciple. He doesn't mean to be mean-spirited, but there's going to be a separation. That's not going to determine emotionally our relationships. There's some of us that have been cut off from our families over this gospel. That's as much of a conflict or a warfare or a death as it is to die physically. But why is it that none of that matters? Well, when God gives you his Spirit, you can do no other but to follow after him. The Word of God is what converts the soul. So we can't attribute salvation to anyone simply because, as you hear people to say, that Timothy was fortunate. He had a godly grandmother. He had a godly mother. It didn't have a thing to do with them. This faith, unfeigned faith that is in thee, is revealed, just as Paul said, when it pleased God to reveal Christ in me. That's when Christ is revealed. But now, how were these stories told? You look over in 2 Timothy chapter 3, where Paul says to Timothy, verse 13, evil men and seducers shall wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. What he's talking about there, as far as evil men, has to do with religious men, so-called Christendom, what we would call, some call Christianity today. All of these congregations and places of worship, notice, waxing worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. That's the false gospel. And it's all prevalent in Timothy's day. It's prevalent today. God so purposed it be that way. It'll be there till the end of time. But continue thou in the things which thou hast learned and hast been assured of, knowing of whom thou hast learned them. Now again, we got to be careful, because some would say, aha, he learned that from his grandmother and his mother. Nope. They were an instrument to read the scriptures to them, but when Paul says, knowing of whom thou hast learned them, you put down there in the margin Christ. The Spirit of Christ has taught you. Now there came a dearth over all the land of Egypt and Canaan, and great affliction, and our fathers found no sustenance. But when Jacob heard that there was corn in Egypt, he sent out our fathers first. And at the second time Joseph was made known to his brethren, and Joseph's kindred was made known unto Pharaoh. Then sent Joseph and called his father Jacob to him, and all his kindred, 75 souls. 75. So Jacob went down into Egypt and died, he and our fathers, and were carried over into Sychem, and laid in the sepulchre that Abraham bought for a sum of money of the sons of Emor, the father of Sychem. But when the time of the promise drew nigh, which God had sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt, till another king arose, which knew not Joseph. The same dealt subtly with our kindred, and evil entreated our fathers, so that they cast out their young children, to the end they might not live. In which time Moses was born, and was exceeding fair, and nourished up in his father's house 3 months. And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son. So even in flux, even not having a land, even not having a temple, all these things that they considered to be vital, even before the law was given to Moses, God had his hand on this people, not for their sake. This is what Stephen is preaching here. But for Christ's sake, that seed that he had promised, it was because of that they were even preserved.